Hey everyone, we're taking you all the way to the Mount Everest today. Okay, not literally. But with me today is Pradeep Sahu, who scaled the Mount Everest at the age of 50 with his wife, and perhaps one of the few couples to have done that, and probably one of the oldest. So it's a great honor to have Pradeep on the show with us. So Pradeep, welcome to the show and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for talking to me.
So Pradeep, when and how early did your interest in mountain climbing develop?
When I look back now after climbing Everest in 2016, my memory goes back to my childhood days in the village, maybe 40 years back. So my village is surrounded by small hills and the hills used to attract me a lot. The first opportunity I got to be in the Himalayas is in 1985, where I spent a month in Kalimpong. The lofty Kanchenjunga, which was very close to Kalimpong, created a very strong impact in me. And fortunately, when I got into Roorkee the very next year, which was again in the foothill of the Himalayas, that gave me a lot of opportunity to carry on.
So you've been climbing for 30 odd years, serious climbing.
Yes, serious climbing since last 30 years.
Yes, so tell me, you're from IIT, you're a director at a mining company in Zimbabwe. What fulfillment do you get through this mountain climbing?
The mountains take me to a very different platform, which gives me peace of mind, which gives me a lot of inspiration, particularly the beauty of the Himalayas, the simplicity of the people who live there, and the divine feeling like it's the abode of God.
So Pradeep, I read that in 2014 you experienced an avalanche near the base camp. 2015 you were part of a devastating earthquake, and 2016 on your first real attempt you scaled the Everest at the age of 50. So could you take us through some of your experiences as you went through all this?
Yes, 2016 was the first real attempt to climb Everest. But when I look back, I may have climbed 1001 times Everest in my mind. In 2013, after climbing, let's say, for about 27 years and climbing many 7,000 meter plus peaks in the Indian Himalayas, me and my wife, we thought of that, yes, we are aging up, going to be 50. We must try to be there on the summit of Everest and bow there and say, Mountain God, bless us for the remaining part of our life. So we started then every walk we take, every exercise we take, we visualize that how we are going to perform in the mountain. 2014, as you said, that we lost about 18 people in minutes in a deadly avalanche.
Oh God.
2015, everything was going fine. Then 7.8 magnitude earthquake which struck Nepal, that also played havoc in the base camp. Base camp is considered to be the safest place in the mountain. We lost 22 lives in that 2 or 3 minutes of that avalanche and the aftermath of that. And we narrowly survived, myself and my wife.
I believe you were injured.
I was injured. My life luckily got a boulder to hide behind and could survive those 2-3 minutes strong wind which was blowing about 200 plus kilometer per hour. So with all these things, the odds what we have faced in the mountain, we never felt that any other higher challenge is going to put us behind not to reach this summit. But yes, deep in our heart, with humility, we are taking each and every step towards our ultimate goal of Everest. Like, it's not for me that end of my climbing, I see it is the beginning of my second innings of high mountain climbing.
Wonderful. So Pradeep, I read that Chetna, it's nice that your wife is also called Chetna, but she suffered some frostbites on her climb up.
For Everest, you can never prepare enough to face all the challenges what nature may throw up. While coming down from the summit of Everest, there is one more geographical feature there called the South Summit, which is 100 meters lower than Everest. While passing through South Summit, Chetna's oxygen apparatus most probably malfunctioned, and slowly she slipped into a coma and she lost her senses.
Okay, and
And
she was not alone.
She was along with her climbing Sherpa, who is our Sherpa friend since last 7-8 years. So he changed the oxygen apparatus, but by that time the lack of oxygen, which is called hypoxia, has taken its toll. And then when the Sherpa went to search for help, he may have left Chetna alone. And without oxygen, when Chetna was sitting at an altitude of 8,500 meters, one have a feeling of, it's not a true feeling, but a feeling of warmth. And during that process, she removed her gloves and she removed her mask. And by the time the Sherpa came back with additional help, she had already suffered frostbite in her hand. Because the temperature at that altitude is about -30, and when in the evening wind started blowing, the wind chill factor also taken its toll.
So what advice would you want to give to beginners who are looking at you and saying, how can we follow his footsteps? What would you want to say to them?
Look, for me, climbing is not a race. I have taken climbing as a worship, climbing as a sadhana of my life. So, but if you want me to advise the young generation, I would first ask them, okay, that why they do want to climb a mountain. What is there they look at from the mountain? That decide how one get himself or herself prepared for the mountain. If you want quick success, yes, there are means, there are preparation methods, there are support systems which can give you success on Everest. You cannot guarantee 100%, but yes, there are methods available. Like you train on simulated chambers which has less oxygen. You undergo endurance training in a less oxygen atmosphere. Then go with very high amount of logistic support. Start using oxygen at a very low altitude. So, but that will be artificial success. If someone wants a real advice, how he want to learn from the mountain, learn the lessons of life from the mountain, I would advise to take it as a worship, step by step.
So if I could ask you to share like a step-by-step approach that someone could use and benefit from, could you help us with that?
First, you need to develop from a very, very basic stage, going to the mountain on a trek, achieve an altitude of, let's say, 4,500 meter or 5,000 meter. See how his body and mind behaving, whether the mountain is talking to him,
okay.
Whether the mountain is able to ignite something in his mind, because it's mountaining is a game of mind. If the mountain calls him back, he goes again. Then serious climbing requires training. He can undertake a 1-month mountaineering program conducted by Nehru Institute of Mountaineering in Uttarkasi, or Himalayan Institute of Mountaineering in Darjeeling. There are a couple of others in Manali and in Srinagar. So this gives a fairly good amount of technical knowledge to a budding climber, how to climb higher mountains, not trek, climb higher mountains on snow and rock and ice. After undergoing this training, then one can go to a real climb where he can apply his skills what he has learnt on the basic mountaineering course. And then the institute offer an advanced mountaineering course for people who has done basic and who has done a climb or two. Once you finish advanced level of climbing program, then you can attempt a mountain, let's say 6,500, or if you are aiming to climb 8,000 meter peak, at least you climb a 7,000 plus meter peak. Because the physiological changes what is required in somebody from up to 5,000 meter is different what is required up to 6,000 meter or 7,000 meter, and what the situation demands when you are climbing 8,000 meter. So those situations cannot be simulated. One need to learn through climbing higher peak after higher peak till he is comfortable in his own capability.
So
then one can aim for climbing Everest.
So talking about physical training, exercise, endurance, building, what do you recommend on that front?
I would recommend the call should come from inside you, that after undergoing this mountaineering training, attending couple of expeditions, your body will tell you that what it requires to undertake higher level of climbing. What I have done in my life is that when I took up seriously going for Everest, I trained hard. I used to run about 10 kilometers 5 days a week, and sometimes taking 10 into 10 schedules. That means running 10 kilometers consecutively for 10 days and taking a half marathon in a month. Okay. This was giving me a confidence that yes, my body is fit enough. And while taking endurance runs, I used to tell my mind, okay, you are at this altitude now, you are at this altitude now. If you are running out of energy, okay, there are a few more steps to go. It was a constant talk between body and mind. But one thing I want to make clear, that no amount of preparation can ensure 100% success or 100% safety.
Right.
But yes, this will help.
So I believe about 10 years ago, you suffered a debilitating spinal injury followed by a surgery. And so tell us about that rehab, because 20 years into mountain climbing, you had such a big setback. How did you come from there? How did you reach this level?
All those days while on the bed for about 6 months, I was telling myself that how I am going to come back to the mountains again. And that's the inspiration which kept driving me. 6 months when I woke up from the bed, I was hardly able to take few steps.
Oh my God.
But I took it day by day. 2006 August I had the operation. 2006, 2007, by end 2007 I was able to do my normal work. Okay. Normal, just survival mode. In 2008 I started taking little bit exercise, and end 2008 at about October 2000 I went for a week to the mountain.
Wow.
To see whether I am still have the energy or still have the capability to walk on the mountain. I walked. 2009 I took to a mountain and climbed up to 6,500 meters.
Oh my God.
And then every year I took mountain after mountain, and 2012 I was amongst the first Indians to climb a mountain called Mount Jongsang in Sikkim, 7,464 meters. And that gave me the confidence that yes, I can still go on and continue my quest for higher mountains.
Wow.
2013 another mountain in Karakoram, and then 14 onwards Everest.
Yeah. So tell me, you and your wife have been scaling peaks together as a family. How does this impact? You have children, young children, and how does it impact them?
Yes, it is a challenge, but in the same time it is a strength. Incidentally, we met each other in the mountain, and we proposed each other in a mountain called Mount Sivling, the origin of river Ganga. Initial couple of years when he didn't have child, so we used to climb together. But when we had our first child, then the second child, and after 1 year of our second child, Chetna started going again to the mountain.
Okay.
And those days we used to take it turns, like when Chetna is in the mountain, I make it sure I am with the kids, and the vice versa. But we never left the mountain. Every year she used to go along with her team, I used to go along with my team. And 2013 we started going again together. We thought our kids are grown up to take care of themselves. We started on small trips, some trips with the kids, and then on 2013 the real preparation for Everest, we went for a month on a mountain in Karakoram. That time my family, like my in-laws and my brother's family, they supported us. Okay. So when I see my life, the climbing as a passion, I could continue because the support that my family was providing me all this way. And when you know you are going on a trip, that whether you come back or you don't come back, you need to mentally prepare your young kids. My mother never wants me to go to the mountain, but to win her heart and bless me and send me off smiling is what I have earned over last 30 years from my family.
Wow. But tell me, you have a full-time job back in Zimbabwe, and how do you balance that out with this rigorous amount of time and energy that you spend in this?
This is one typical question I am faced always from young and old. My answer to them is, if you put your heart into something, time will automatically come, because you plan your jobs around that only. The focus is taking 2 months out in a year to be in the mountain. So you have 10 more months left to work. Okay. So that's the way I look at it. So no job is big enough which cannot be completed in 10 months.
So Pradeep, before we cap the show, can you describe that special moment when you were right at the top of the Mount Everest? What went through your heart and mind?
You can never climb a mountain if the mountain does not permit you to be there on the top of the mountain. Every day we used to pray. We carry the goddess Durga, we carry God Ganesh, then my own God Jagannath. Okay. And when he reached on the top of the mountain, my first reaction was to knee down, touch the Sagarmatha. Everest is known as Sagarmatha. Touch the Sagarmatha on I bow down and touch Sagarmatha. Then I place all these god and goddess on top of the mountain, took photographs with that, unfold the Indian national flag. And as I was a resident in Zimbabwe now, my fellow Zimbabweans had asked me, why don't you carry Zimbabwe flag? So I also carried the flag of Zimbabwe to the top of the mountain. I didn't feel any surge of excitement on the top of the mountain, but it's a very sublime feeling and the feeling of emptiness. And once all these things are over, then how I get back safely.
Fantastic. It's been such a beautiful experience talking to you, Pradeep. I wish you many, many years more of very fulfilling climbs together with your wife. And thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Please click the subscribe button below. Like me at facebook.com/ChetChat101. Follow my Twitter handle ChetChat101 or at Instagram ChetChat101. Please leave your comments in the sections below. And if you'd like me to feature any particular college, please let me know. Thank you.